There is a version of you that lives only at night. It walks through places you've never been, speaks with people long gone, and feels things your waking mind keeps quietly folded away. Tonight, we're going to visit that version of you, gently, slowly, the way you might open an old letter you've been meaning to read for years. Welcome to Sleepy Science Facts. Wherever you are right now, perhaps already tucked beneath the weight of your blanket, perhaps with the day still fading from your shoulders, allow yourself this small permission to arrive here completely. We'll move through 100 psychology facts about the hidden conversation between your dreams and your waking life. From the moment your eyes close and your brain shifts into its oldest language, to the way last Tuesday's argument becomes tonight's landscape, to the quiet bridge between who you are asleep and who you are when the light returns. This kind of content, slow, careful, built for the part of you that thinks best in the dark, takes time to find. If it found you tonight, consider passing it forward. A gentle like, a quiet subscribe, or sharing this with someone who lies awake too long could bring them here too. Every person who finds rest through this channel matters. One sleepy soul at a time. Now let your jaw soften. Feel the weight of your head against whatever is holding it. You don't need to memorize anything tonight. You don't need to understand every word or follow every idea. Let these facts move through you the way dreams do. Present for a moment, then dissolving into something warmer. There's nothing to carry, nothing to solve. Just this voice, and the slow descent into knowing. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. You're floating where memories rest safely in gentle darkness. Let your mind merge with infinite peace. And now we begin. Every human being dreams, even those who say they don't. Studies using polysomnography, the scientific measurement of sleep stages, confirm that all people who enter REM sleep generate dream activity. The reason many people believe they don't dream is that dream recall fades with remarkable speed after waking. Research suggests that within the first few minutes of waking, a large portion of even vivid dream content can dissolve completely. What feels like an empty night is almost always filled with images, motion, a narrative that the waking mind simply cannot hold on to. You are a dreamer, even on the nights you cannot remember it. Dreaming is not one thing. It is a spectrum of experiences that spans the entire night, shifting in character as the hours pass. Early dreams, those occurring in the first cycles of sleep, tend to be fragmented, brief, and loosely connected to recent events. Dreams in the second half of the night grow longer, more vivid, more emotionally charged, and more narratively complex. A dream at 2 in the morning is fundamentally different in texture and logic from a dream at 5. Your brain moves through this gradient every night, cycling through stages, deepening and lightening, constructing different kinds of stories for different parts of the darkness. The most active dreaming occurs during a stage called REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep. During REM, the eyes move beneath closed lids in quick, irregular bursts. The body becomes temporarily paralyzed, a natural protective mechanism that prevents you from physically acting out the events your brain is generating. Meanwhile, brain activity during REM closely resembles the pattern of a fully awake brain. In some ways, dreaming resembles waking, simply arriving through a quieter door. Neuroscientists sometimes describe it as a second consciousness, operating on the same hardware but running entirely different software. Dreams and daily life are not separate territories. They exist in a continuous loop. What you experience during the day, the conversations, the worries, the small moments of beauty or tension, feeds directly into what your brain constructs at night. Researchers call this the day residue effect, a term that dates back to Sigmund Freud, but has been validated repeatedly by modern sleep science. Fragments of the previous day, sometimes direct replays, sometimes distorted echoes, appear in dream content with measurable regularity. Your dreams are, in part, a reprocessing of your lived experience. They are the night shift of your mind. The day residue effect follows a curious time pattern. Events from the day immediately before a dream appear most often. But there is a second peak, a smaller one, that occurs for events that happened approximately 1 week earlier. This is sometimes called the dream lag effect. It suggests that the brain is not simply replaying the most recent input. It is cycling back through material it hasn't fully integrated, returning to unfinished business with a quiet, unhurried patience. Your dreams may sometimes feel random, but they often carry a specific kind of logic, the logic of what still needs to be understood. The hippocampus, a small, curved structure deep in the brain, plays a central role in both memory formation and dreaming. During waking life, it acts as a gateway, encoding new experiences and deciding which ones to pass into long-term storage. During sleep, it continues this work in a process called memory consolidation, replaying neural patterns from the day, reinforcing connections between newly learned information and what the brain already knows. What feels like a story playing out behind your eyes may be, in part, the sound of your brain organizing the day's experience into something it can keep. What feels like imagination is partly maintenance. Not all dream content is new. Your brain draws from a vast archive when constructing dreams. Familiar faces, recurring settings, half-remembered places from childhood. These surface in dream content decades after their original experience. Neuroimaging studies show that visual areas of the brain activate during dreaming in patterns that match those produced during waking perception. Your sleeping brain is not inventing images from nothing. It is drawing on the accumulated visual library of your entire life, recombining and recontextualizing material you didn't know you still carried. Emotional content in dreams is not evenly distributed. Negative emotions appear more frequently than positive ones in dream research. Fear, anxiety, sadness, and frustration show up with greater regularity than joy or contentment. Some researchers interpret this as the brain prioritizing threat-related processing, the evolutionary logic being that it is more useful to rehearse danger than to rehearse pleasure. But recent research suggests the picture is more nuanced. Positive emotional dreams exist in significant numbers. They are simply less memorable, less vivid, and therefore less reported. The architecture of recall may be shaping our perception of dream emotional tone. Dreams involving falling are among the most universally reported across cultures, languages, and generations. So are dreams of being chased, of losing teeth, of arriving unprepared for an important event. The consistency of these themes across such diverse populations suggests they may be connected to deep, shared neurological or psychological patterns rather than learned cultural content. Some researchers link falling dreams to hypnic jerks, the sudden muscle twitches that occur as the body transitions into sleep, possibly misinterpreted by a brain not yet fully asleep as a physical collapse. The body and mind are still negotiating the border. The connection between dreams and daily life runs in both directions. Not only does waking experience shape dreams, dreams actively influence waking experience. People who dream about practicing a skill perform better on that skill the following day. People who dream about an emotional conflict often report feeling calmer about that conflict upon waking. People who dream about a feared situation sometimes find the fear diminished in subsequent exposure. So yes, dreams are already shaping how you move through your days, and they have been your entire life. The relationship is not passive. It is a living exchange. Sleep scientists measure dream intensity partly by tracking the presence of theta waves, brain wave patterns that oscillate between 4 and 8 cycles per second. Theta waves appear most prominently during REM sleep, and their intensity correlates with the vividness of dream experience. Interestingly, theta waves also appear during waking states of creative thinking, daydreaming, and meditative focus. The same neural frequency that carries you through a vivid dream is also active when you are lost in a daydream, generating a new idea, or sitting in quiet reverie. Dreaming and waking imagination share a common electrical rhythm. Animals dream. The evidence is now robust across dozens of species. Rats show replay of spatial memory during REM sleep. Their hippocampal neurons fire in patterns that precisely match those recorded during the day's maze exploration, as if the rat is running the maze again in sleep. Birds show REM sleep with the same basic neural signatures as mammals. Even octopuses, whose nervous systems evolved along an entirely different branch of life, display what appears to be REM-like states, their skin flickering with color changes that suggest active visual processing. Dreaming is not a human invention. It is one of the oldest things alive. The content of your dreams is influenced by temperature, sound, and physical sensation. Studies introducing mild stimuli, a cool mist on the face, a faint odor, a soft sound, during REM sleep show that these sensory inputs are frequently incorporated into dream narratives within seconds. Your brain is not sealed off during sleep. It is a semi-permeable membrane, sampling the environment with low-level attention while constructing interior worlds. The rain outside your window may be falling inside your dream. The warmth of your blanket may be a sunny field somewhere behind your eyes. REM sleep is not the only stage in which dreams occur. Non-REM sleep, including the deepest slow-wave stages, also generates mental activity, though it tends to be less visual, less narrative, and more thought-like. Researchers describe it as sleep mentation, the formless, half-formed impressions that hover at the edge of sleep without quite becoming stories. Some people report these as a sense of floating, a feeling of slow movement, a vague sense of thinking about something important without being able to name it. This is your brain at rest, not empty, but quiet, like a room with the lights turned low. Lucid dreaming, the state of knowing you are dreaming while you are still inside the dream, is a real and measurable neurological phenomenon. During lucid dreams, the prefrontal cortex, normally suppressed during REM sleep, shows increased activity. This is the region associated with self-awareness, decision-making, and conscious reflection. Lucid dreamers report being able to observe their dreams with a degree of detachment, to make deliberate choices within the dream narrative, and sometimes to direct its events. Research suggests that roughly half to just over half of all people have experienced at least one lucid dream in their lifetime, a finding consistent across many cultures and age groups. You may have been there yourself, standing in a dream, suddenly knowing it was one. The link between dreams and creativity has been documented across history and confirmed in the laboratory. Many scientific breakthroughs and artistic works were reportedly conceived in dreams or in the hypnagogic state, the threshold zone between waking and sleep. In controlled studies, participants who slept between two problem-solving sessions were significantly more likely to find hidden solutions than those who stayed awake. During sleep, the brain relaxes the rigid associative patterns of waking thought, allowing distant concepts to connect across networks that are normally too far apart to communicate. Sleep may be where insight quietly waits. Recurring dreams, those that repeat across nights, sometimes across years, with consistent themes or settings, are more common than most people realize. Surveys suggest between 60 and 70% of people report having had recurring dreams at some point. The content of these dreams tends to cluster around unresolved emotional themes, interpersonal conflict, a sense of inadequacy, being unable to complete a task, returning to a place from the past. Recurring dreams appear to function as persistent signals, the brain returning repeatedly to material it considers unfinished. When the underlying issue resolves, the dream often stops on its own. Dreams involving deceased loved ones are reported with striking frequency across cultures and age groups. In bereavement research, these visitation dreams, as they are sometimes called, are reported by the majority of grieving individuals. They are often described as unusually clear, emotionally distinct from ordinary dreams, and deeply comforting. Whether they represent psychological processing, neurological memory consolidation, or something else entirely, remains an open question in the scientific literature. What is consistent is the emotional function they seem to serve: contact with what is lost, however briefly, in the most private theater the mind possesses. The amygdala, the brain's primary emotional processing center, is particularly active during REM sleep. In fact, it is often more active during dreaming than during waking life. This heightened activity is thought to explain why dreams carry such strong emotional resonance, why fear in a dream can feel more visceral than fear while awake, and why waking from a vivid dream can leave an emotional residue that colors the entire morning. Your dreams are not less emotional than your waking life. In some measurable ways, they are more so. a reflection of the brain's deep commitment to understanding what you have felt. Sleep deprivation does not simply reduce the quantity of dreaming. It changes its quality in measurable ways. When people are sleep deprived and then allowed to sleep freely, the brain recoups REM sleep preferentially, increasing both the proportion and intensity of dream sleep. This is known as REM rebound. During rebound nights, dreams tend to be more vivid, more emotionally charged, and more unusual in their narrative logic. The brain treats dream sleep as a debt that must be repaid. It prioritizes the process as if something essential depends on it, because something does. The emotional tone of your dreams is influenced by your emotional state before sleep. Studies show that people who engage in relaxing activities, positive social interaction, or creative work in the evening hours report more positive dream content. Conversely, those who end the day with high arousal content, intense news, conflict, screens displaying fast-paced imagery, report more negative and fragmented dreams. The transition into sleep is not a wall. It is a gradient, and what you carry toward it travels through. The quality of your evening shapes the quality of your sleeping night, not just in rest, but in what the sleeping mind is given to work with. Some research suggests that the act of writing down dreams shortly after waking, a practice known as keeping a dream journal, increases dream recall and may increase the emotional benefit derived from dream processing. The act of translation, of moving imagery into language, appears to complete a loop the brain would otherwise leave open. People who practice dream journaling regularly report greater awareness of recurring themes, stronger recall of emotional content, and, in some studies, improvements in mood and creative output. There is something in naming the dream that allows it to finish its work. Nightmares are not simply bad dreams. They are a distinct category characterized by content distressing enough to cause awakening. They occur predominantly during REM sleep, most often in the second half of the night, when REM periods are longest. Nightmares are reported with greater frequency among people experiencing anxiety, post-traumatic stress, and high life stress, but they are also found among otherwise healthy individuals during periods of transition or uncertainty. Research on imagery rehearsal therapy suggests that nightmares can be gently modified through deliberate waking rehearsal, changing the ending of a recurring nightmare consciously, and finding that the modified version often replaces the original in subsequent sleep. The relationship between dreams and physical health is becoming clearer as sleep science advances. People with chronic pain often report pain-laden dreams, while those whose pain resolves show corresponding improvement in dream content. People recovering from illness frequently report dreams with themes of restoration and movement. Researchers now consider dream content a potentially meaningful window into bodily states, not diagnostic in a clinical sense, but informative in the way that any subjective report of internal experience is informative. Your dreams know something about your body. They have always been paying attention. We are only beginning to understand why we dream. Multiple theories exist, and none has been definitively proven. The threat simulation theory proposes that dreaming evolved as a mechanism for rehearsing responses to danger. The memory consolidation theory holds that dreams are a byproduct of neural processing that sorts and strengthens daily experience. The default mode network theory links dreaming to the same brain network active during mind-wandering and self-reflection. The emotional regulation theory suggests that REM sleep serves to soften the emotional charge of difficult memories, allowing them to be integrated over time. These patterns are emerging. The thread is forming. And the answer is somewhere ahead. Let's pause here and notice your body. As you breathe out slowly, appreciate each tiny cell inside. Trillions of organisms working in silence. Heart beating, lungs breathing, brain thinking, all without your command. Right now, your brain is doing what it has always done in the quiet hours. Sorting, filing, releasing. Notice the gentle sensations on your skin, in your muscles, along your spine. You are a complete ecosystem, diverse, self-balancing. You don't need to manage it tonight. It knows what it is doing. Now, we continue. The prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for logic, planning, and critical thinking, significantly reduces its activity during REM sleep. This is why dreams rarely feel illogical while they are happening. The part of the brain that would notice the inconsistency is largely offline. A staircase that leads into the sky. A conversation with someone who is also someone else. A room that keeps expanding. These feel ordinary in the dream state because the evaluating mind is resting. What remains active is memory, emotion, and perception. Dreams are what happens when the editor goes to sleep. Color in dreams is nearly universal. Despite older studies suggesting many people dream in black and white, studies conducted partly in the era of black and white television, more recent research, using careful methodology, suggests approximately 80% of people report dreaming in color. The remaining 20% may represent differences in reporting rather than differences in experience. Those who grew up with black and white media report a higher proportion of monochrome dreams, suggesting that the visual environment during formative years shapes the palette of the dreaming mind. What your eyes learn to see, your dreaming brain learned to construct. The body does not fully disengage from the environment during sleep. Studies show that the sleeping brain continues to process language at a basic level, able to distinguish meaningful speech from meaningless sound, and even to respond to simple questions in limited ways without the sleeper becoming fully conscious. In one line of experiments, participants in REM sleep were able to answer yes or no questions by deliberately controlling the movement of their eyes. Communication from inside a dream. The boundary between sleep and wakefulness is a gradient, not a wall. Some part of you is always listening. Physical activity during the day influences the structure and content of sleep in measurable ways. Exercise increases the proportion of deep, slow-wave sleep in the subsequent night. It also appears to influence REM, sleep timing, and quality. Though the relationship is more complex and depends on when exercise occurs relative to sleep, people who exercise regularly report better sleep quality, less disturbed REM sleep, and, in some studies, more positive dream content than sedentary individuals. The body's daytime activity sends signals forward into the night. Movement is a form of preparation that extends all the way into dreaming. Children dream differently than adults. Young children's dreams tend to feature animals. movement, and isolated images rather than complex narrative. The detailed, story-structured dreams typical of adult sleep appear to develop gradually through childhood as the brain's narrative capacity matures. Children under the age of approximately 8 report shorter, simpler dreams and show less self-representation in dream content, meaning they appear less often as active participants in their own dreams. The self that narrates, observes, and acts within the dream seems to require years of development before it fully arrives in the sleeping mind. People who are blind from birth do not have visual dreams. Their dreams instead feature rich auditory, tactile, olfactory, and spatial content, constructed entirely from the sensory channels their waking brain uses to interpret the world. Those who lose their sight later in life initially continue to have visual dreams, but these tend to fade over years as the brain's visual processing areas are gradually repurposed. The dreaming brain constructs experience from available materials. It does not simulate vision it has never learned. It builds with what it knows, and what it knows is enough. The connection between stress during the day and dream content at night is among the most consistent findings in dream research. People experiencing elevated psychological stress report more frequent nightmares, more negative dream effect, and more fragmented sleep architecture than their lower stress counterparts. But recent research adds nuance. Moderate stress, the kind associated with meaningful challenge rather than chronic overwhelm, sometimes produces vivid, narratively rich dreams that appear to support problem-solving. The brain does not simply react to stress with fragmentation. It sometimes responds with something closer to quiet attention. The social content of dreams is striking. By some estimates, more than 90% of dreams feature at least one other person. This makes dreaming one of the most consistently social experiences the human brain generates. A private space nonetheless populated almost always by others, family members, romantic partners, strangers, and figures from the distant past all appear with frequency. Researchers suggest this reflects the deep importance of social connection in the human neural architecture. Even in sleep, we are not alone. Even in the dark, the brain reaches toward other faces. Medications and substances alter dream architecture in significant ways. Antidepressants that affect serotonin systems often suppress REM sleep, leading to reduced dreaming during treatment, and sometimes to intense REM rebound when the medication is discontinued. Alcohol initially suppresses REM sleep in the first half of the night, then produces REM rebound in the second half, which is associated with more vivid and sometimes disturbing dreams. Certain blood pressure medications have been linked to unusually vivid dream content. The chemistry of your body shapes the chemistry of your dreams, quietly, every night. Pregnancy significantly affects dreaming. Research consistently documents that pregnant individuals report longer, more vivid, more emotionally intense, and more frequently recalled dreams than their non-pregnant counterparts, particularly in the third trimester. Dreams during this period often feature the baby, themes of preparation and anticipation, and unusually high anxiety content. Sleep architecture changes during pregnancy due to hormonal shifts, physical discomfort, and altered REM timing, all of which may contribute to both more dreaming and more dream recall. The body, preparing for profound change, seems to enlist the dreaming mind as part of that preparation. Some dream researchers distinguish between thin and thick boundary personalities. Thin boundary individuals, those who tend toward openness, sensitivity, and fluid identity, report more frequent, more vivid, and more emotionally complex dreams than thick boundary individuals, who tend toward practicality and clear self-other delineation. This relationship, first described by Ernest Hartman in the 1990s, has been supported by subsequent research. The permeability between waking and dreaming experience appears to be a stable personality dimension, not a disorder, not a gift, simply a variation in the architecture of the self. Smell is the most underrepresented sense in dreams. Despite being one of the most emotionally evocative sensory channels in waking life, capable of instantly retrieving memories from decades past, olfactory experiences appear in dreams with far less frequency than visual, auditory, or tactile sensations. Some surveys suggest as few as 1% of dreams contain any smell at all, though more recent studies suggest the figure may be somewhat higher. Why the sense most tied to memory and emotion should be so quiet in the dreaming mind remains an open and genuinely curious question in sleep science. Cultural context shapes dream content in ways that reach beyond individual experience. Cross-cultural dream studies show systematic differences in the frequency of certain themes. Dreams of being chased are more common in societies with higher interpersonal conflict and social comparison. Dreams of flying are reported more frequently in cultures that value individual autonomy and aspiration. Dreams of social failure are prominent in collectivist societies, where reputation and group belonging carry significant weight. The dreaming mind is not just a personal theater. It is shaped by the social world it wakes up in every morning. The experience of sleep paralysis, a state in which the body remains temporarily paralyzed from REM sleep while the mind has woken, is often accompanied by vivid hallucinations, a sense of a presence in the room, pressure on the chest, and intense fear. It occurs when the boundary between REM sleep and waking is crossed incompletely. Rather than waking cleanly, the sleeper emerges into awareness while the brainstem's motor inhibition system is still engaged. Across cultures, sleep paralysis has generated local myths, folklore, and explanations rooted in tradition. The old hag, the incubus, the ghost at the foot of the bed. The ancient mind explained in story what science now maps in neurons. Dreams may serve as a form of emotional simulation, a space in which the brain rehearses responses to situations that carry high emotional stakes without the physiological cost of real exposure. In this framework, dreaming anxiety about a presentation is not merely a symptom of waking anxiety. It may actually be a process by which the brain rehearses the emotional regulation required to navigate that situation. The dream, in this view, is preparation. It is the mind building the capacity to feel, to fear, and to continue, before the moment arrives and asks those things of you in daylight. The implications of this are still unfolding. You're still here, still listening, still drifting with us through these quiet corridors of the sleeping mind. Just notice where your body is right now. Take one slow breath. There's no rush. We're moving through consciousness itself, the very thing doing the exploring. Strange, beautiful, and perfectly calm. Let's drift onward together. REM sleep and emotional memory are bound together in ways that researchers continue to explore. Matthew Walker and colleagues at the University of California proposed a hypothesis they called the sleep to forget, sleep to remember model. The idea that during REM sleep, the brain may reactivate emotional memories within a neurochemical environment with reduced levels of certain arousal-related neurotransmitters. In this proposed process, the memory itself is preserved and strengthened, while the emotional charge it originally carried gradually softens over successive nights. Research on this hypothesis is ongoing, and the evidence so far is promising, if not yet fully settled. What remains consistent is this: sleep and emotional recovery are deeply linked. You wake from a full night's rest carrying the same memories, only a little lighter. The relationship between post-traumatic stress and dreaming is particularly well documented. People with post-traumatic stress disorder report nightmares as one of the defining features of their condition. Nightmares that often directly replay difficult events rather than following the distorted, symbolic transformations typical of ordinary dreaming. Research suggests this may reflect a disruption of the normal REM sleep process that usually softens the emotional weight of stored memories. Some of the most thoughtful treatments for trauma-related nightmares target sleep architecture directly, gently adjusting the conditions under which the sleeping brain encounters the difficult material. Dream interpretation, the practice of extracting meaning from dream content, has existed in nearly every recorded human culture. Ancient Egyptian and Mesopotamian texts describe systematic approaches to dream analysis. The Talmud devotes significant attention to the significance of dream content. Indigenous traditions across 6 continents have formalized practices of dream sharing and communal interpretation. What is striking is not any specific system of interpretation, but the universal assumption that dreams carry information worth attending to. Across time and geography, the human mind has agreed on this. The night has something to say. The default mode network, a set of brain regions that activate when attention is turned inward rather than toward the external world, shows significant overlap with the neural networks active during dreaming. This network is engaged during daydreaming, self-reflection, thinking about the past, imagining the future, and considering the experiences of others. Its involvement in dream generation suggests that dreaming is, at a neural level, a form of inwardly directed cognition, continuous with, rather than separate from, the mind's waking interior life. The mind that wanders during the day may already be moving toward the same territory it visits at night. Sleep and memory consolidation research has increasingly focused on a phenomenon called targeted memory reactivation. During slow-wave sleep, researchers play sounds or odors that were previously associated with specific learning material. This gentle cueing strengthens subsequent recall of that material, not by replaying it passively, but by prompting the sleeping brain to actively re-engage with chosen memories while the rest of the mind rests. What this reveals is that the sleeping brain does not simply receive what the day has given it. Given the right invitation, it can be guided toward what matters most. The relationship between dreams and problem-solving has been confirmed in laboratory settings. In studies where participants are trained on a mathematical task with a hidden shortcut, those who sleep between training and testing discover the shortcut at roughly twice the rate of those who stay awake. The dreaming brain appears to step back from the local logic of the problem and view it from a wider angle. It finds paths that careful, sequential waking thought overlooks. Whatever insight feels like from the inside, the sudden clarity, the unexpected connection, it is, from the outside, a measurable effect of sleep on neural architecture. Dreams involving flying, sensations of rising effortlessly, moving through air without effort, are reported across cultures with remarkable consistency. Theories range from the neurological, linking the sensation to vestibular system activity during sleep, to the psychological, interpreting it as a sense of freedom from waking constraints. In cultures with widespread aviation, flying dreams have become more common. An interesting example of cultural content reshaping dream experience over historical time. Whatever their origin, flying dreams are consistently rated among the most pleasurable of all dream experiences. The sleeping mind, at least sometimes, knows how to give itself joy. Adolescence brings distinctive changes to dreaming. The substantial neural reorganization that occurs in the teenage brain, including the pruning of unused synaptic connections and the maturation of the prefrontal cortex, is accompanied by changes in sleep architecture, including a shift toward later sleep timing and an increase in dream vividness and emotional intensity. Research suggests that REM sleep during adolescence plays an important role in the social and emotional learning that defines the period. The brain processing the intensely relational, identity-forming experiences of those years in the most private space available. Growing up, in part, happens in dreams. Older adults tend to dream less vividly, recall dreams less frequently, and spend less time in REM sleep than younger adults. These changes appear to be part of the normal arc of sleep architecture across a lifetime. However, research also suggests that the emotional intelligence applied to dream content deepens with age. Older dreamers report more nuanced, more self-aware engagement with difficult dream material, even when the material is less vivid. The quality of relationship with the dreaming mind may deepen even as its most dramatic productions become quieter. Age changes the volume, not the meaning. We are halfway through our journey, and already the answer is forming. Dreams are not separate from daily life. They are daily life, processed, transformed, and returned to you in a different form. The fears you carry, the people you love, the problems you haven't solved, the grief you're managing, the creativity you haven't yet found room for, all of it is there, every night, in the quiet laboratory of your sleeping mind. The connection between dreaming and waking is not metaphorical. It is physiological, measurable, and continuous. Your days and nights are one long conversation, and it has been going on since before you had words for it. Each memory you believe is fixed and settled is actually reconstructed fresh each time you recall it. Right now, your brain is doing something remarkable, rewriting the day, softening its edges, deciding what matters. The past you carry is not a photograph. It is a living thing, always being revised toward meaning. Let this moment be part of the revision. You don't need to hold everything tonight. The brain is already choosing what to keep and what to release. We continue the journey, The neural pathway between emotion and memory runs through the same structures that generate dreaming. The hippocampus and amygdala, working together through the night, are responsible for encoding what happened, how it felt, and what it means. This joint processing during sleep is thought to be one reason why emotional memories are so durable, and why dreams so often have emotional weight that outlasts the specific images. Feeling remains after the story fades. The emotional trace is what the brain decided to keep. There is growing evidence that social dreaming about other people, their relationships, and their perspectives, contributes to social cognition during waking life. People who dream frequently about others score higher on measures of empathy and social intelligence in some studies. The proposal is that dreaming may function as a social rehearsal ground, a space for practicing the inferences, emotional responses, and perspective-taking that navigating relationships requires. If so, the most private experience the mind generates may be, in part, preparation for the most public one. The amount of REM sleep a person gets changes across the lifespan in a pattern that suggests dreaming serves functions of special importance early in life. Newborns spend approximately 50% of their sleep in REM. Adults spend approximately 20%. Premature infants spend an even higher proportion in REM, around 80% by some estimates. Some researchers interpret this as evidence that REM sleep plays a central role in the rapid neural development of early life, building synaptic connections, calibrating sensory systems, organizing the neural architecture that will support a lifetime of thought and feeling. We begin our lives mostly dreaming. The content of dreams sometimes foreshadows waking experience, not through any mystical mechanism, but through the brain's continuous pattern recognition, subtle physical symptoms, early-stage shifts in the body's chemistry, or changes in emotional tone may be registered below the threshold of waking awareness. These signals may surface in dream content before the person consciously notices anything has changed. Researchers studying historical case reports and more recent survey data have found examples of this across a range of conditions. The dreaming brain attends to the body with an intimacy the waking mind rarely achieves. The sensation of deja vu, that quiet feeling of having been somewhere or experienced something before, has been linked in some research to dreaming. One hypothesis proposes that deja vu occurs when a waking experience resembles a dream memory closely enough to trigger a sense of recognition, but the dream source is not consciously retrievable. Given that most dreams are forgotten almost entirely, this gap between feeling and knowing is easy to imagine. The sense of familiarity arrives without its origin. The recognition is real. Only the context is lost. Sleep and the processing of social rejection show an interesting relationship. Research has demonstrated that people who sleep following a socially painful experience show reduced emotional reactivity to the memory of that experience compared to those who stayed awake for an equivalent period. Sleep appears to soften the sting, not by eliminating the memory, but by reducing the physiological arousal associated with it. This is the emotional regulation function of REM sleep in one of its most practical forms. The hurt you took to bed last night is, by this morning, slightly lighter than it was. Dreams involving water, oceans, rivers, rain, flooding are among the most frequently reported in cross-cultural dream surveys. Water's range in waking experience is vast. From renewal to calm to the sensation of being overwhelmed, and this may partly explain its prevalence in dream imagery. Neurologically, water environments in dreams may reflect the brain's processing of emotional states of varying intensity. The placid lake of equilibrium, the swift river of momentum, the tide of gradual release. Either way, the dreaming mind returns to water, again and again, with a regularity that feels like something more than coincidence. The relationship between creativity and dreaming extends beyond problem-solving. Research on writers, artists, and musicians suggests that dreams contribute to creative output not only through sudden insight, but through the generation of novel associative combinations, unexpected pairings of image, mood, metaphor, and concept that the more logically constrained waking mind would not produce. Salvador Dali reportedly napped, holding a key above a plate, so that the imagery arising at sleep onset would become available to him before fully dissolving. The creative tradition of courting the dream state is ancient. The neuroscience explaining it is new. Children who experience frequent nightmares may be showing signs of heightened anxiety that extends into waking life, not as a definitive indicator, but as a signal worth noticing with gentleness. Research shows that nightmare frequency in childhood correlates with daytime anxiety levels, and that interventions addressing daytime emotional regulation often reduce nightmare frequency as a secondary outcome. The dream and the day are not separate systems. Tending to one tends to the other. The child who sleeps better usually feels better awake. The child who feels better awake usually sleeps better. People report dreaming in their native language, in languages they are currently learning, and in mixtures of both. Language learners who sleep between study sessions show better retention of new vocabulary than those who stay awake. Some researchers report that dreaming in a second language is a meaningful marker of language acquisition, a sign that the brain has begun to process the new language with the same automaticity it applies to the native tongue. If you have ever dreamed in a language you are learning, something real has shifted in your neural architecture. The dream confirmed the progress. The concept of the collective unconscious, proposed by Carl Jung, has not been validated in the strict sense of modern neuroscience, but the observation that inspired it remains genuinely interesting. Certain dream images, narrative structures, and symbolic figures appear across cultures with enough consistency to invite reflection. Researchers studying this universality today tend to explain it through shared evolutionary history, shared developmental experience, and shared neural architecture rather than through any literal collective repository. But the observation stands. Certain images seem to belong to dreaming as a human phenomenon, not only to any single dreamer. Grief shapes dreaming in distinctive ways. People in acute bereavement report not only visitation dreams featuring the deceased, but also more frequent nightmares, more fragmented sleep, and difficulty distinguishing between dreaming and waking in the hypnagogic period. As grief changes over time, as the acute phase gives way to integration, dream content involving the deceased tends to shift as well, from distressing to comforting, from confused to clear. Sleep researchers who study grief suggest that this arc of dreaming change mirrors and supports the arc of psychological adaptation. The dreaming mind grieves alongside the waking one. Meditation practice appears to influence dream quality. Long-term meditators report more frequent lucid dreams, higher emotional stability in dream content, and greater awareness during the hypnagogic and hypnopompic transitions, the thresholds between waking and sleep. Research on meditators' sleep architecture shows differences in slow wave and REM patterns consistent with more flexible regulation of states of consciousness. The practices of attending to the present moment, of noticing mental content without reactivity, appear to carry forward into the sleeping hours. Attention trained in waking life may gently change the mind's behavior in the dark. The hypnagogic state, the threshold experience between wakefulness and sleep, is characterized by vivid imagery, sudden sounds, and the sensation of movement, all occurring in a mind not yet fully asleep. These experiences are not dreams in the traditional sense, but they share neural territory with dreaming. Thomas Edison reportedly used the hypnagogic state deliberately, napping in a chair while holding steel balls, so that the sounds of them falling would wake him at the threshold, allowing him to harvest the unusual images and connections arising there. The most creative moment of the day may be the one most people sleep through. We now understand something worth holding gently. The emotional regulation that happens during dreaming is not incidental to sleep's function. It is part of why sleep evolved, or at the very least, one of its most consistent and measurable benefits. The person who wakes from a full night of REM-rich sleep is not the same as the person who went to bed. The neural processing that occurred during those hours has, in small but cumulative ways, changed the relationship between the stored memory and the emotional weight it carries. This is not poetry. It is biology. You wake every morning, subtly different from who you were when you closed your eyes. There is something called the continuity hypothesis of dreaming. The proposal, supported by substantial empirical evidence, that dream content is broadly continuous with waking concerns and preoccupations. People who are preoccupied with something tend to dream about it. People absorbed in a creative project dream about problems related to it. Athletes frequently dream about their sport. The thesis is simply stated: dreaming extends the mind's waking activity into the night, following its concerns like a quiet river following the landscape it was given. The narrative changes. The concerns persist. You take yourself to bed every night, including the parts you are hoping to leave behind. Dreams involving tests, examinations, or performance evaluation are among the most widely shared across cultures and professions. A particularly interesting finding is that these dreams frequently occur in people who have long since passed the life stage that originally produced them. Adults decades out of school, still dreaming of being unprepared for an exam they are about to take. Researchers interpret this as the brain's use of a well-established emotional template for processing any evaluative concern. The specific content is borrowed from memory. The emotional function is current. The exam in the dream is never really about the exam. Research on couples and sleep shows that relationship quality influences dream content in both directions. People in supportive, secure relationships report more positive dream affect and fewer nightmares than those in conflicted or anxious attachment relationships. Conversely, couples who sleep in the same space show some synchronization in sleep stages across the night, possibly related to shared environmental cues and behavioral entrainment. The relationship you are in does not stay on the waking side of the night. It comes to bed. It shapes the hours you spend inside your own mind. Heat increases the frequency of unsettling dreams. Studies examining the relationship between ambient temperature and dream content consistently find that higher temperatures correlate with more negative and more fragmented dream experiences. The sleeping brain's thermoregulatory systems and the body's efforts to maintain core temperature during sleep appear to interact with REM sleep quality in ways that affect the emotional tone of dreaming. Cool environments support deeper, more stable REM. Warmer environments can disrupt it. The conditions you sleep in shape the dreams you have in ways that are measurable and consistent. People who experience high levels of absorption, the trait of becoming deeply immersed in experiences, losing track of time in creative or imaginative activities, being easily transported by music or fiction, tend to be higher dream recallers and report more vivid, more detailed, and more emotionally engaging dreams than low-absorption individuals. The quality of waking imagination and the quality of dreaming appear to use related neural capacities. The mind that loses itself most completely in a book is the mind that builds the most intricate interior worlds at night. There is growing interest in whether dream content can be gently shaped. Practices, including pre-sleep imagery, rehearsal, deliberate attention to a chosen topic before sleep onset, and certain forms of mindfulness-based suggestion have shown measurable effects on subsequent dream content in controlled studies. This is not a claim that the dreaming mind can be fully controlled. It cannot. But it can be nudged. The direction your attention faces as you fall asleep influences the territory the dreaming mind begins to explore. The last thought you hold at the border of sleep has more weight than most people give it. Dreams involving loss of a wallet, a phone, a child, a home, a relationship are reported with high frequency and tend to carry significant anxiety, regardless of how small the lost object is. Sleep researchers have noted that the emotional weight of lost dreams often exceeds what seems proportionate to the content, suggesting that the brain uses the dream not to rehearse the specific loss, but to process the emotional texture of loss itself, the vulnerability, the gap where something was. Dreams are not always about what they appear to be about. The image is a costume. The feeling underneath is what matters. The sleep and dreaming experiences of people who work night shifts show consistent changes compared to those on conventional schedules. Circadian misalignment, the mismatch between internal biological timing and external schedules, disrupts REM sleep architecture, reduces dream recall, and can increase nightmare frequency. Long-term night shift workers show elevated rates of mood disturbance, which may be partly related to the chronic disruption of dream sleep. The body's biological clock is not merely a metaphor. It governs the sequence of sleep stages with exquisite precision. And when that sequence is disrupted, the emotional processing that depends on it is disrupted too. The experience of waking up in the middle of a dream, suddenly, in the dark, heart still carrying the rhythm of whatever was happening inside, is a specific kind of disorientation, unlike almost anything else. The images persist for a moment, overlaid on the real room, real ceiling, real hands, on real sheets. Then they dissolve. Researchers call this the hypnopompic state, the mirror of the hypnagogic, occurring not at sleep's entrance, but at its exit. It lasts seconds, rarely longer. But in those seconds, the two worlds briefly occupy the same space. You are, for just a moment, in both. By now, the answer is clear. Dreams and daily life are not two separate stories running on parallel tracks. They are one story told in two registers. The waking register is linear, purposeful, social, and shaped by logic. The dreaming register is associative, emotional, solitary, and free of the sequential demands that structure daylight thought. Together they form a complete system, each making possible what the other cannot provide. Waking life generates the material, dreaming life processes, integrates, and returns it transformed. You have been living this system your entire life. You have been dreaming your way through everything that has ever mattered to you. Sleep does not come when you try to sleep. It comes when you stop trying. This is exactly that moment. The natural cycle has been running since your first night alive. The rhythms of light and dark, of waking and rest, of remembering and releasing. You don't need to guide it tonight. You only need to allow what is already arriving. Breathe out slowly. Feel the quiet weight of where you are. We're almost there now. Every dream contains a version of you. Even when you are observing rather than participating. Even when you appear as someone else. The perspective is yours. The dreaming mind is always, at its center, a self. And that self, constructed each night from memory and emotion and pattern, is practicing something. Perhaps only the practice of being. The dreams you remember most clearly are usually the ones that woke you. A small disruption, a sound, a movement, a shift in temperature. At precisely the right moment of REM sleep, lifts you just enough to carry the dream back across the border. Most of your richest dreaming is never remembered. It occurs in the depths, in the long, uninterrupted arcs of sleep, and dissolves entirely before morning. What you remember is just the edge of something much larger. There is a phenomenon called false awakening, a dream in which you believe you have woken up. Go through your morning routine, and then truly wake to find none of it happened. These nested dreams can repeat several layers deep before the final. Real waking occurs. They are more common among lucid dreamers and people with high dream recall. They reveal something interesting about the brain's modeling capacity, that it can construct a convincing simulation of ordinary reality so complete that no alarm is triggered. The dreaming brain knows what waking looks like. It has seen it every morning of your life. Animals that play during the day tend to dream more during the night. Studies in mammals link playful daytime behavior to increased REM sleep and more complex dream activity. Play, researchers suggest, introduces novel, non-routine experiences that require more extensive neural processing than habitual behavior. The dreaming brain has more to work with. More material means more dreaming. Joy in the day feeds the night. The Old English word that became our word dream originally carried meanings closer to joy and music, not sleep visions at all. It was through Old Norse influence that the word slowly gathered its modern meaning. the sense of a vision seen in sleep. Something of that older sense may still linger, even now. Not every night, but sometimes. In a dream you barely remember, something is quietly good. The cycle of sleep repeats approximately 4 to 6 times each night. Each cycle lasts roughly 90 minutes. Each cycle contains its own arc of deepening and lightening, of non-REM, descending into slow-wave sleep, and then rising again toward REM. By the last cycle, before waking, REM sleep may extend to 45 minutes or longer. Long, uninterrupted dreaming at the threshold of morning. The night is not a single experience. It is a series of complete journeys, each one bringing you a little further along. Napping restores more than alertness. Short naps of 20 to 30 minutes, taken in the early afternoon, improve mood, reaction time, and emotional resilience. Longer naps of 60 to 90 minutes allow entry into REM sleep and show improvements in creative problem-solving and emotional memory processing. Even when full nighttime sleep is adequate, the afternoon nap appears to provide a supplementary processing window. Many cultures that historically normalized midday rest showed health and cognitive benefits that researchers are now working to quantify. The body asks for rest in the afternoon. There may be excellent reasons to listen. Dreams involving the past tend to feature people and places more vividly than the present does. The childhood home appears in dreams with a clarity often exceeding its current waking representation. Faces of people long absent arrive with a specificity that can feel like seeing them again. The sleeping brain preserves some things with care that waking memory cannot match. Whatever is stored in the depths of long-term memory is not faded. It is simply waiting for the right kind of darkness to become visible again. The experience of being someone else in a dream, inhabiting another person's body, seeing through their eyes, is reported with some regularity and is thought to reflect the brain's theory of mind capacity, its ability to model other perspectives, operating freely during sleep. This experiential empathy of the dream state is one of the reasons some researchers believe dreaming contributes to social cognition. To know another person, you may first need to have dreamed them. There is a quality to the moment just before sleep that is unlike any other moment in the day. The thoughts become less linear. Connections arise between things that have no logical relationship. Images surface briefly, unexpected and vivid. The sense of self softens at the edges. This is the hypnagogic threshold. Not yet sleep, no longer fully waking. Some people pursue it deliberately. All people pass through it every night. It is the door through which you enter the rest of your mind. The brain during dreaming shows activity in the default mode network, the visual cortex, the motor cortex, the hippocampus, and the amygdala, but shows reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex. The regions associated with working memory and executive control. This pattern is what allows the dream to feel coherent from within, while appearing impossible from without. The evaluating mind is resting. The generating mind is not. What comes through in that space is sometimes the truest thing you know. The dreams that stay with you for decades are usually ones that touched something real. Not real in the sense of factual, but real in the sense of true. They arrived at a moment when something important was forming or breaking or arriving. They carried a feeling you recognized before you understood it. The brain encodes emotionally significant material more durably. The dreams that linger did so because your sleeping mind was working on something that mattered. Toward the end of life, dreams often become richer, more retrospective, and more frequently populated by people from the distant past. Researchers studying end-of-life dreaming have documented a consistent pattern in which people report dreams of deceased loved ones arriving to accompany them, dreams of travel and preparation, and dreams of resolution. Whatever the mechanism, these dreams are reported as deeply comforting, as a form of readiness. The dreaming mind, at every stage of life, is attending to what is next. The sleeping brain does not choose randomly what to replay. During slow-wave sleep, newly encoded memories compete for consolidation resources, and those with stronger emotional resonance, higher novelty, or greater relevance to existing knowledge are prioritized. This means that what you dream about, in part, reflects what your brain considers worth keeping. Not everything survives the night's selection, but what does is carried forward into the next day and the days after that, forming the slow sediment of who you are becoming. So could the connection between dreams and daily life change how you understand yourself? It already has. The moment you understand that your dreams are not random noise, but a continuous, caring, biologically meaningful engagement with your own experience, that moment changes the relationship. The night is no longer empty. The forgetting is no longer only loss. Even the dreams you cannot remember were doing something necessary. You have been accompanied, every night, by the most intimate intelligence you possess. Music heard before sleep influences dream content. Participants exposed to specific pieces of music before sleep report dream content, influenced by the emotional and rhythmic qualities of the music. More flowing narratives for gentle music, more fragmented imagery for high arousal compositions. The auditory cortex maintains sensitivity during sleep, and its processing of sound during the transition into sleep appears to seed the emotional and imagistic landscape of subsequent dreaming. What you listen to in the last waking hour is a kind of gentle suggestion for the night. The act of sharing a dream with another person changes it. In the retelling, details clarify or fade. The emotional center of the dream often becomes more apparent. Insights that were not available upon waking sometimes arrive in the course of speaking the dream aloud. Researchers studying this have suggested that the social processing of dream content may extend the integrative work begun during sleep, that talking about a dream is, in a limited but real sense, still dreaming it. The dream is not finished until it has been told. Research on dream incubation, deliberately attempting to dream about a chosen topic by focusing on it before sleep, shows partial but real effects. Not every attempt succeeds, but the frequency of topic-related dream content increases beyond chance in incubation conditions. Ancient dream temples, where people slept in sacred spaces hoping for healing or guidance, operated on a version of this principle. The evidence suggests they may have been doing something genuinely effective. The direction of attention at the threshold of sleep has influence. What you carry toward the dark matters. The texture of sound in dreams is different from waking hearing. Dream sounds are often described as softer, more resonant, further away, as if heard through water or from another room. This may reflect the reduced auditory processing threshold during sleep. The dreaming ear attends to emotional tone more than acoustic detail. What you hear in a dream is always, in some sense, how something sounds to you, rather than how it sounds in the world. The dream is always already translated into feeling. There are dreams that arrive only once and are never forgotten. A single night, a single image, a single feeling that persists for decades. Researchers who study these landmark dreams note that they tend to occur during periods of major transition: adolescence, early adulthood, loss, recovery, parenthood, aging. They carry a quality of arrival, as if something long-forming has finally surfaced. Some people describe them as among the most meaningful experiences of their lives. They were experienced entirely in sleep. They were experienced entirely alone, and they changed everything. The connection between your dreams and your daily life is not something you need to manage or optimize. It is something that is already happening. Every night, without instruction, your sleeping brain attends to what you have lived. It sorts and softens and reconstructs and releases. It builds bridges between what you have experienced and who you are becoming. You do not need to participate consciously in this process. You only need to sleep. The rest is already underway. When you dream of flying, you are borrowing from a memory of a feeling, the body's memory of weightlessness, of ease, of the moment when effort releases and motion continues on its own. The dreaming mind knows that feeling exists because the waking body has known it. In water, in the moment of letting go, in the brief float at the top of a breath, dreams do not invent sensations. They recombine the ones you carry. You already contain everything your dreams have ever shown you. The science of dreaming is young. The systematic study of sleep and dream content in the laboratory is barely 70 years old. In that time, researchers have learned more about the sleeping brain than in all the centuries before. And yet, at the center of the inquiry, the core experience remains as intimate and private as it ever was. No measurement fully captures what it is to be inside a dream. The science describes the architecture. You live in it. Tonight, when you sleep, your brain will begin its work. It will move through the shallow water of early sleep, down into the deep, slow rhythms of restoration, and then rise again toward the vivid territory of REM. It will find material from the day, a face, a worry, a sentence half heard, a feeling with no name, and it will make something from it. Whether you remember it or not, whether it is coherent or quiet or simply gone by morning, it will have served a purpose. The work of the sleeping mind is real, and it is ongoing, and tonight it continues. The real answer was never about dreams alone. It was about the continuity of the self, the thread that runs through sleeping and waking without a break, carrying your fears and your longings and your unfinished work from the day into the dark and returning it, quietly changed, to the morning. You are not two people, one who wakes and one who sleeps. You are one person, always in motion, always processing, always becoming. The dream is not the interruption of your life. The dream is part of how your life becomes itself. And so, our quiet journey through the dreaming mind comes to a gentle close. We began with the day residue, the fragments of Tuesday appearing in Thursday's dream, and found that nothing is simply discarded, that the brain attends to everything with a patience we rarely grant ourselves. We moved through the amygdala's nocturnal brightness, through the continuity hypothesis, through the landmark dreams that arrive only once and stay forever. And we arrived here, at the understanding that your sleeping self is not a stranger to your waking one. They are the same person, working in different light. Something that has been forming quietly through this entire hour has just arrived at its own conclusion. Dreaming reminds us that the mind never fully closes. Much of the most meaningful work of being a person happens in silence, in darkness, in a state so private that even the dreamer is rarely present for it. Sleep reveals patience, the unhurried, consistent movement of the brain through its own interior, attending to what it considers worth attending to, releasing what it is finally ready to release. Without this nightly processing, something in us accumulates without resolution. By pausing to notice, even briefly, we glimpse something in the ordinary darkness that is anything but ordinary. In these final minutes, take the deepest breath you can, as deep as possible. Think about the unity of every dreaming mind across the world tonight, each one moving through its private corridor, each one processing the day's residue, each one attending to what still needs to be understood. You are not doing this alone. Somewhere, right now, millions of minds are in the same darkness, doing the same quiet work. You are a link in this chain, not isolated, not separate. Let your entire being dissolve into the space between waking and sleeping, where thought becomes image, and image becomes rest, and rest becomes everything. Prepare for deep sleep. No boundaries left, only peace. If this particular journey, through the science of what happens when you close your eyes, brought you something worth carrying forward, perhaps a little more trust in the night, a little more patience with what happens while you rest, then consider passing it on. Someone who lies awake too long might need exactly this. One quiet share, one sleepy soul at a time. The night's processing is already underway, without your effort, without your witness. You don't need to hold any of this. It was never yours to carry. You've traveled inward tonight, through corridors most people never pause to notice. You touched the architecture of who you are, and found it more fluid, more gentle, more forgiving than it seemed. You can allow these thoughts of dreaming to fade now, like the last image at waking. Present one moment, then softer, then simply part of everything, leaving only the quiet, unheld calm behind. Let your breathing deepen. Let your body feel heavier, as if all you have carried today is being sorted by careful, invisible hands, and is simply setting itself down. If sleep comes, let it carry you the way consolidation does, not with force, but with quiet intention, into a realm where time and weight no longer matter. If your eyes are still open, the next video is waiting for you, ready to continue the journey. But if they're closed, stay there. Stay in the darkness that feels safe and warm. Tomorrow, your memory will still be there, still tending, still weaving, still becoming. But tonight belongs to stillness. Rest well, gentle explorer. And remember, your mind is always rewriting toward the light. Good night.